So I have with me Dave Wisler, formerly of GE. Dave is editor of several important journals in our field. Where do you think authors should publish their research results?
Well, typically authors publish in two places. They publish in journals, of which GPPS's journal is an example, and these are permanent literature archival papers. They're valuable historical records, and that's the important thing, and they're competently peer-reviewed. The other place where authors publish are in conferences, like the GPPS conference. And these are what we call current interest papers. They are valuable, they're technically relevant, they're usually peer-reviewed, but oftentimes that review can be of a lower quality, and they're not judged to be archival. So these two places are the dominant places where authors publish.
So you mentioned current interest and journal papers. What are the similarities between the two?
Good. There are some fundamental similarities. Of course, as you well know in your research that in Cambridge, etc., they have to be technically correct. You can't have papers that aren't valid by analysis or experiment. New things such as models must be shown to be relevant or correct by the author. So they have to be technically correct, and they have to be written with correct grammar. Nobody wants to read papers they cannot understand, that aren't concise. There are rules of language, there's word order, there's sentence structure, there's paragraph structure, there's composition and spelling. So whatever language is being used in the journal, they have to follow that journal's grammar rules. Those are the two major things, technically correct and grammatically proper.
So what are the specific attributes then of journal quality papers, for example?
Yeah, that's a good question. I get asked that a lot by authors who submit papers directly to the journal or whose conference papers don't make the journal. And we have a higher quality. By that I mean the value, the worth of the paper than current interest papers. The standards used for judgment and for assessment are higher. The essential properties of the content have more substance to them, and the relevance to the technical discipline is higher. They present new, unpublished findings that are useful, interesting, and have lasting value. Excuse me, that archival quality, because we're educating current and future generations, and these papers are used as references by other people. And they advance the state of the art. They change the way we think about the technology or the processes. They improve our understanding. They explain unexplained phenomenon. And they create new or better models or products or designs or processes. And they push out the boundaries of the unknown. In addition, and finally, the papers have relevant application to the technology field. How is this paper going to be used, or the results used, to improve the product? How is the new computer program or model going to reduce the cost or the time to get the analyses? Is it useful to the users of the product, the manufacturers, the service people? Those kinds of things, relevance to application, are important.
So how is a current interest paper different?
Now, the authors don't like to be told that their current interest paper isn't of good quality. They can be of good quality. They must be technically correct, of course, and they have value, they have quality, but the process uses less rigorous evaluation of the value, the worth of those papers than are for journal quality. So they can be technically correct, but not journal quality for a number of reasons, one of which is they don't advance the state of the art. And you and I have discussed this on many occasions. They don't show the usefulness or relevance to the product or the application. They use known theories, textbook analyses of common products that don't enhance our understanding. They can repeat the work of others, and so it's already been done, it's nothing new. Or they can make simplifications, those are necessary sometimes, but they aren't consistent with today's state-of-the-art or technology. So those major differences, it's the difference in structure and a difference in the value we assigned to what's in the paper.
So Dave, do you have some examples of current interest papers in mind?
Yes, current interest papers can be quite interesting. They don't meet the rigor of the evaluation process for journal quality papers. So examples of current interest papers would be case studies in which the researcher is giving small incremental advances in an overall research project. But each of these small integral advances are just like progress reports. We want the whole thing. Analyses or experiments done in which the author states them in the conclusion but doesn't tell the relevance. How is this going to be used? How does it advance the state of the art? It just said, this is what I've done. And these presentations of new theories without the documentation that the theory or the model is correct. Analyses using very simplified textbook equation, the standard equation for thermodynamics or aerodynamics, and they don't embody the fact that these standard analyses are very sophisticated today, but they go back to the simple analyses that have been done 10, 15, 20 years ago. Conclusions that are speculative. My results show that the compressive performance should be increased by 2%. But you have to show that. You just can't tell me you think it's going to do it. And findings that are already known. These are the kinds of things that will get you into the classification of current interest papers. They may be interesting at a conference and people may understand that information, but they're not archival, they're not a permanent literature, they're not the things we described for journal quality papers.
So what about the content of journal quality papers then?
Well, and you and I have discussed this at great length too. It's an important issue. The abstract needs to be very well written. Typically, readers will look at the abstract and the conclusion to decide whether or not they want to read the paper. So authors need to spend significant amount of time on the abstract and the conclusions to excite the reader, on the abstract, for example, to provide the scope, provide the objective, to have a clear statement of the results and why they're important. And then we go to the conclusions, provide a brief description of the objective of what the researcher is doing, the methodology, but the findings. What are the value, relevance, usefulness of the findings? To give the reader the idea of archivalness. And if the reader understands these things at the beginning and the end of the paper, they're likely to go then to the introduction. What is the area of the technology being addressed? What are the issues that are trying to be resolved? What have others done? And how has your work advanced what others have done? The body of the paper, the purpose, the description of the problem, the solution methodology, the validation of the solution's findings, value, usefulness again, relevance, application, all of these things are contained in the body, and as you and I have discussed at length, in a concise, understandable form. Nobody wants to read lots of pages of stuff that basically you fall asleep reading. And so that conciseness is really important. And there are things to avoid. Unproven speculative statements, long, detailed derivations of equations. This particularly comes when I see pages and pages of derivation of equations. Nobody's going to read those. And the case studies, make sure you use technology that is current. But two important things: plagiarism. You must have integrity. We have tools today to check plagiarism. Authenticate is used in the journals. It's in GPPS and others, that the editor simply hits a button and all the copy of that paper that's appeared in other publications flashes in their eyes. And that needs to be avoided. You can't pass others' work off as your own. And this new thing of self-plagiarism, where you use your own previously published work but don't reference it in the paper. Authenticate picks that up. So these are the things to avoid. Basically, if you have a good, concise narrative that addresses the issue and gets to the point, you can be quite successful in getting journal approval in the publication.
Dave Wistler, thank you very much.
Thank you, Howard. Appreciate it.